This is Gemara Baba Basra, Daf Kof Lamid Tes, and we pick it up on the bottom of Kof Lamid Chesamid Bees. And once again, all the learning should bring an incredible zchos rafua shlema for Tinoik ben Miriam Ahuva. An exciting day in the world of Daf as we conclude. Well, you never conclude the Yesh Neichlin, but we finish going through, we should say, the famed 8th parak of Baba Basra. Yesh Neichlin. But for now, we pick it up at the Mishnah on the bottom of Kof Lamed Chesed Beis. Ha'av Toile Shumachel L'chol Mi She'yirtz. And this really continues the case of the previous Mishnah of Kof Lamed Vav, who's when the father gives the property to a child, but it says that he, the father, retains the rights for the usage of the property until the son dies. So what is the father allowed to do? Says the Mishnah, Ha'av Toilesh. The father could pick the produce, and feed anyone who wants. Umashaniach Tolush. And that which he leaves detached, that which he already picked, Hareu shal Yarshim, that will go to his Yarshim, because that was not included in the gift that he gave to the child. He gave the child the karka, so if he picked it out, that does not go to the children. It doesn't go to that child, I should say, goes to the regular Yarshim. Says the Gemara, Tolashin Mechuber Loi. Sounds like that which the father picked, that goes to the Yarshim. But Mechuber, that does not go to the Yarshim, but that rather goes to the child that he's giving this karka as a matana. But asks the Gemara as we turn over to Kov Lamed Tes Amid Aleph Tanya. But we learned in Abraisa Shaman as Amuchubarim Lilokeach. We evaluate that which is attached, that which is part of the land still, Lilokeach, to the purchaser. So clearly the buyer is going to get that which is mechubar. Why are we saying that? So Amar Ula explains the Gemara, Loi Kasha, Kan Bibinoi, Kan Be'acher. Kan Bibinoi, our Mishnah says that it goes to the recipient is to Binoi. Kan Be'acher, when the Brisa says that the attached produce does not go to the recipient, that is about someone else. Why? A svara. One's das is karaiv, is close to his child. He wants to give the child more, and therefore we assume that when he gave this matana to the child, he would give him, the father is not going to not give him that which is mechuber. We continue with another Mishnah on the top of Kof Lamed Tes Amid Aleph. Hini achvanim gedolim uketanim. Hina gedolim is trying to say al yidei aktanim v'lo yaktanim nizaynim ala gedolim. The gedolim are not misparnesim. The gedol ones do not support themselves from at the expense of the younger children. And on the flip side, the younger children don't get to eat from the gedolim. Now, what this is referring to is the parts of the estate which are not yet split up. So can we use those parts to be nisparnes the gedolim or to be machel the ketanim? Says the Mishnah, no. Ella, rather, what do? Cholkin b'shaveh. Everything is split equally. Nasu agedolim, yisu agetanim. The older children married and they utilize the funds, they utilize the estate, that which was not yet divided to pay for their chasana. Then, similarly, Yisu Aketanim. The younger children do the same. Vim Amru Aketanim. But if the younger children said, Ari Anu Noisin Giderech, Shenesatem Atem, Ein Shaimim Loi. If the Ketanim said, we're going to marry in the same manner that you did, and we don't listen to them, rather, Alamashinaslam Aviem Nasan. Rather, whatever the father gave, he gave, and the younger children don't get that same amount. And Gemara, of course, is going to explain what does it mean the father gave to them. Aren't we discussing Chalukah, which we would think the father is no longer? The Gemara will discuss in a few moments. So So left older and younger daughters. The older ones do not support themselves at the expense of the younger ones, and similarly, like Katanas, the Zainais, the same exact in Elam, Chalkais Bishav, and the last medium line, Katanas. But Imamar Katanas, if the younger daughter said her and Noisim, we want to get married, Kidershan is Hatamaten, Ein Shaimim Lai. We do not listen to them, so seemingly the daughters have the same din as the sons. But says the Mishnah to conclude, there is a chumrah. That the daughters are fed at the expense of the sons. But they're not fed at the expense of the other daughters. So there is a chumrah that at some level the daughters have a greater portion of greater rights than the sons, and Mirza Hashem, we will see exactly what this means. So says the Gemara, before we even dive deeply, first we have to understand if the Mishnah is contradicting something else. The older brother who clothed himself, he got dressed and he bought clothing, mi beisa, from the undivided estate. My David, that which he did. But says the Gemara, what about our Mishnah of Anan Tanan, that they're not able to be nisparnes, to support themselves from the estate? Rava says if he did it, he did it. Answers the Gemara, Mas Nisan b'shircha. The Mishnah is talking about a shircha, someone who doesn't work, whereas Rav is referring to the brother who deals with the estate. Says the Gemara, shircha pshita. But it's obvious that a child who's not working can't take just extra from the estate. What's the chiddush? Says the Gemara, Ma'u detema nichle deloy ninavel. I would have thought that maybe he's allowed to do it because other brothers should be happy that their brother is not looking disgusting, kamash malah, and that we don't say such a svara, and he's not allowed to take from the estate. We continue the Gemara, the fifth white line. Mike Amr says, what is going on over here? So Amr Rav Yehuda Achi Kamar, so what's going on? Nasu Gedalim la acher misas aviem. Yesu Gedalim la acher misas aviem. If the Gedalim utilized the estate to pay for their chasana after the father died, the Ketanim can do the same. Aval nasu Gedalim b'chay aviem. V'amru Ketanim la acher misas aviem. Then ain't Shaimin Lamb. So now, of course, this makes that much more sense. The Gemara explains, you know what's going on in the Mishnah? If they are Gedalim, were married in their father's lifetime, the father made their chasana. Now the father's no longer, and the Ketanim want to say, we want to make a chasana from the estate the same way that the father did for you. That Ein Shaimim Lahem Elamashe Nasan Lahen Aviyam Nasan, whatever the father left to them in the state they get, but they cannot go and make the same type of wedding that the father made for the brother. End of the Mishnah. Excuse me, the next case. Moving on to the Banos. Shalei Avu Bar Geniva LeRav Yalamdenu Rabbeinu the Lavsa Va'achla Va'amda V'Nisis. Yalamdenu Rabbeinu teach us the following. If a woman borrows money, v'achla, and she spends the money, v'amda, now she gets up in this case and she gets married. What is the husband with regard to those monies that are part of the estate that his wife brought into the marriage? Is the husband considered a loikeach or a yairish? Is he considered a purchaser? Because it's milval peh, cannot be taken from the purchasers, and therefore, if the wife owed someone money, they would not be able to collect from the husband. Maybe the husband considered a yairish, or milval peh gavim in a yarshim, and then they would be able to collect from yarshim. So fundamental shayla asks the Gemara, what is the husband considered with the estate that he gets from his wife at their marriage? I'll bring you a raya from the Mishnah. Nisuk does Yisukatana is my love. Nisuk does the Baal. Yisukatana is mi Baal. Does Mishnah mean the older daughters married husbands, that they took money from the estate? Yisukatana is mi Baal. Then the younger daughters could do the same thing. No, mi Baal, that the younger daughters could go to the Baal of the older daughters and utilize that estate to pray for their wedding. So that would mean that the husband didn't have a yairish. That's why the other siblings can go and tap into his funds. Libal, says the Gemara. If the old one married husbands, Yisu Kitanos, Libal, nothing to do with the older husband paying, but rather taking money from the estate. Amy asked the Gemara, but Tani Rav Chia Nisuk does Libal, Yisu Kitanos is a Mibal. Rav Chia Mamish taught that Lashain. Says Gemara, Dilma Shiny Parnasa, this like Kala. Maybe that case was different. It was a case of a Parnasa that people know about, and therefore maybe you can't bring a raya from that case. So it says Gemara, let's bring another raya. Lavhainu deshach Ravin bigartes is not that which Ravin sent in his letter. Misha meis v'niach almana ubas almanasai. He dies. What is his ex-wife? His almana nizayin has been a chasa from his estate. This is Abbas. The Torah gets married. Almanasai nizayin has been a chasa. Then the widow is fed from minachasav, from his estate. Mesa Abbas. Rav Yehuda ben Achaisai shal Rav Yossi. Rav Yehuda ben Achaisai Rav Yossi says ben Chanina al Yedei al Yadi Ayamaisa. With me there was a story of Amru the Chachamim Paskin Almanasai Nizainais made nechasa from his estate, even in this case. So the Gemara now proves 3 lines from the bottom. If you're going to say the husband instead of a Yerish, now I can understand why the Almana is fed from his estate, because he's in of a Yerish, so he assumes the place of the father, the one that died, therefore you could collect from him. So Gemara wants to prove that the husband has a din of a Yerish, and the Gemara leaves that with that proof. Amar Rav Abaye, 2 lines of Abaye, and Abaye disagrees. Ilav the Shalch Ravin and Nalo Yadinan. If not for the fact that Ravin had sent this Shaila, we would not know. Analo Yadinan, would we not know that the husband has a din of a Yeresh? But Tanan asks Abaye, what about the Mishnah that says the following do not go back in the Yovel? Haba Chayra, the firstborn double portion. Yeresh is Ishtai. And someone inherits his wife. So we see, asks Abaye, as we turn over to Kofla Mites Amid Beis, that if the husband inherits his wife and it does not go back a Yovel, what does that prove? That proves that the husband has a din of a Yeresh and not Lokeach. If he had a din of a Lokeach, of course, everything that's bought goes back. Clearly, it's din of a Yeresh. Amrle Rava says, Rava on the top line, V'hashta the shalach mi adinon. Now that Ravin sent the Shaila, do we not know that he's in of a Yeresh? Amar Rav Yisra Chanina, Be'usha Eskino Yisha Shemachra Ad Nechsei Malog. Bechaye Bayil, a woman sells her estate while her husband's alive, do Meisa Abal. Meisa, and she dies. Habal Moitzi Mi'al Lekuchais. So what do we see? If Afoch, ask the Gemara, you're proving me that the husband is in of a Yeresh, but seemingly it's clear he's a din of a Loikeach Elam Ravashi Baal. Shavivu Rabbanik Yeresh. Chazal consider him like a Yeresh, and Shavinu Rabbanik Kiloikeach. It depends on the case. Vechletav alei avida alei. Chazal treated him whichever way is more advantageous to him, each scenario, the way that it goes. I think Gemara explains. With regard to the din of Yovel, Chazal said he didn't have a Yeresh. Why? Bishop said the day. Because if the husband did have a loikeach, he will lose it. Nacham al Misham said they didn't want him to lose it. Gabe Dravin, Misham Seda Talmana, Shavir Rabbanan Ki Yarish. Ask the Gemara of Gabe Rav Yisrael Chanina Dikab Seda Lakuchais and Yashavir Rabbanan Lokeach. So there is the case that you lose. Says the Gemara Hasam Inu Avsida Navshayu. In that case, it's considered that he brought the loss on himself. Kim di kabal. Because in that case, since he was married at the time, therefore, they should not have brought property from a woman who's living with her husband. So they caused this whole issue onto themselves, and therefore, Chazal have no way to fix that story. Hadron alochi shneichlin. Certainly, Chazara is in store, but let's just begin the 9th parak for a moment. Continuing in a similar vein, so who dies leaves over her children. If there is a large estate, then what's the din? Then if this is sounding familiar, that's great. It's a Mishnah in Ksubas. Admoin Oimer says Admoin. Shoshani Zochar, if Sadati, because I'm a male, I shall lose. I've become Leal, right? And he is every Admoin. I understand what you're saying. Pick it up from here and we'll delve more into this B'siyata D'Shmaya, the next